800,000 Americans, more than the populations of Washington, D.C., Boston, or Denver, have a special role in keeping us healthy, powering our homes, putting food on our tables, and protecting us from harm. How? Through the power of chemistry. Chemistry binds us together, and it is the engine that powers our economy. It allows chemical engineers in New Orleans to help a tech startup in Silicon Valley. Chemists in Richmond provide materials for an automotive parts manufacturer in Columbus. And a chemistry company in Newark helps triple a farmer's crop yield in Nebraska. But we not only produce goods for the United States, we export them around the world. Keeping our economy moving means that every hour, 97,000 tons of chemical products must be safely transported between American manufacturers. Railroads play an important role in safely transporting chemicals. We need reliable, competitively priced rail service to ensure that American chemical manufacturers can continue their plans to invest over $100 billion in our economy. However, current freight rail policies are having a negative impact on the relationship between U.S. manufacturers and railroads. Over 30 years ago, our nation's freight rail system was struggling to meet the needs of the country. So Congress passed laws designed to help put the system back on track. Railroads not only recovered, they began to thrive. The rules were working, at least for a while, but since 2001, rail rates have skyrocketed by 93%, nearly 3 times the rate of inflation and truck rate increases. But why? What is so different about rail? Dramatic consolidation reduced the number of major railroads from 27 in 1980 to 7 in 2001, with 4 major railroads holding 90% of the market. Today, more than 3/4 of all freight rail stations essentially have access only to a single major railroad, giving railroads unique pricing power. Surprisingly, government rules actually shield railroads from having to compete with each other, even when there's a competitive option available. Not surprisingly, the lack of access to competitive rail service leads to higher costs for each link in the entire domestic supply chain. From raw materials, to the chemical manufacturer, to the chemical customer, to the repackager and product maker, to the farmer, and finally, the consumer. All along the way, in each state, jobs, capital investment, and economic impact are adversely affected by increasingly higher rail rates. This can add up to a supply chain for a domestic product that is far less competitive than one shipped from China. It doesn't have to be this way. So how can the U.S. rail system become a free market again? A lot has changed since 1980, but the rules governing railroads haven't, and it's time policymakers updated them. It's time that government paid more attention to the economic impact of high freight rail rates. Policymakers need to ensure access to competitive rail service wherever possible. Current government procedures impose such high costs and burdens that many shippers have no viable option to challenge and resolve unreasonably high rail rates. This process needs to be more efficient. Congress needs to debate these issues. The railroads don't need the burdensome level of government regulation that hampered their growth 30 years ago. But what's no longer debatable is that the lack of rail competition threatens American manufacturers and their ability to compete globally. The bottom line is that we can compete with anyone, but we all have to compete, no exceptions. Learn more about how rail competition reform is the right formula for a healthy economy.